Hello, welcome to 8.9 News. I'm Ffinlo Costain. The Usk Catchment Partnership has announced the appointment of We Are Nature Based CIC to act as the nature guardian to the core group of the partnership. In this way, they say that the rights of nature will be enshrined into decision-making. Tom Johnstone is the director of We Are Nature Based. I asked him to tell me more about the appointment.
So we've recently established to provide a consultancy opportunity for organisations of all sorts across Wales predominantly, but also wider across the UK. And at the moment, we're looking to support the uptake of nature-based solutions where they really fit into land management practices and help build resilience for the farming system or for the land management practice in general. So predominantly at the moment, a lot of that work is around natural flood management, and it's offering support, advice, guidance, and practical installation around a suite of nature-based solutions options. And we're also keen to help further the discussion around the rights of nature, again, predominantly within Wales, but really taking the thinking and the learning that's been going on internationally and seeing where that sits alongside the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act in Wales.
So you're a community interest company. Why have you chosen that particular structure?
Well, we see it as a bit of an opportunity to, I suppose, do a little bit of Robin Hood economics. There's a lot of consultancy available, although perhaps not as much in the nature-based solutions field at the moment as is really needed by the scale of the challenges that we face, and also just the physical scale of area that nature-based solutions need to be adopted. But with some of those consultancy models that are out there at the moment, it's not entirely clear where the money's going. And we all know that consultants can be a little on the costly side at times. But by setting ourselves up as a CIC, we're able to offer that same level of service and expertise to everyone, regardless of their financial situation, regardless of their governance and their size.
You mentioned the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act in Wales. Just for those who don't know what it is, could you just very briefly explain what that is and how it affects public policy making?
Yeah, so Wales is the first country in the world to have instigated a legal mechanism, the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act, so that all organisations have to consider the impact of their decisions on future generations. There's a really nice diagram that I would encourage listeners to go and have a look at, which breaks it down into the different sections to be considered. And there's an empty seat at the table in the Senedd to really give people that physical reminder that the decisions that we're making go far beyond either a 5-year Senedd term or a single year or a 5-year or a 10-year investment cycle. Decisions we're making today will affect our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren.
Well, just thinking further about that empty chair in the Senedd, the Usk Catchment Partnership says that the company's appointment ensures that the rights of nature are enshrined into decision-making. What does that mean?
When the Usk Catchment Partnership core group comes together, there's a number of voices in the room, and rightly so. So we have representatives from the farming community and from the water companies and from Natural Resources Wales and the local authorities. But everybody who comes into that core group has multiple hats that they have to wear. Everyone has a livelihood to look after, an organisational structure that they come from. And the one voice that isn't directly and independently in that room and in that discussion is nature's voice. And we spent a lot of time talking to the folks at Faith in Nature, who were the first company in the world to put nature on the board within a corporate setting, which is a very different governance setting and structure, and therefore different sort of legal wranglings that they had to go through. And we had a number of conversations within the Usk Catchment Partnership about nature's rights. Well, of course, everyone who's there thinks about nature and loves and values nature, but this is an opportunity for there to be one, or probably in the future 2 individuals whose sole focus is the voice of nature and the rights of nature. And I think it just gives us all an opportunity to unpack our individual biases. I think it frees people of a level of peer pressure, or it provides another mechanism within the core group to overcome some of that potentially implicit peer pressure. And also it allows a voice for the conversations that might not be able to be had from some individuals because of the politics, the organisation they come from, or the statements that they are or are not empowered to make. We saw last year that incredibly brave piece from Hywel Morgan, the chair of the Nature Friendly Farming Network in Wales, saying that he thought that there were a number of really positive attributes within the proposed sustainable farming scheme, but he'd spoken to many farmers who thought the same, but they were almost too scared to say so because the general consensus was that it was not a good thing. And I think that by having a representative of nature sit on the Usk Catchment Partnership, it allows those nature-focused thoughts and comments to come out and for them to then be discussed. So the idea is that following a very similar model to how children are represented by a guardian, an adult, if they have to give evidence in court, we will have at the moment an individual, myself, but in the future hopefully two individuals who will speak for the voice of nature. And obviously there's again a number of internal biases that need to be unpacked and need to be sort of considered around that, but it very much gives us the ability to go in and just sit with that one hat on.
So how do you do that? For example, how do you define the value of a river?
Well, I think this is an interesting one. So what I would say to anyone who questions the value of the river or is seeking an answer for the value of the river is wait until midsummer on one of those really hot sunny days, take your kids down to the river, and then as a family jump in and go for a swim. And once you've been splashing around in the river, come out onto the bank, and if you still need a value, then I think we're probably got some other conceptual issues around value that probably need dismantling and overcoming first.
Well, there are a whole range of different approaches to value, aren't there? I mean, the people will be very concerned about the economic value of their land, the economic value of their businesses, particularly if there are decisions being taken that affect those in a negative way. And the example that you give there reminds me of the way that, we talked for a long time about polar bears in relation to climate change, and people like polar bears, but not enough to change their lifestyles in order to save them. So how do you place it? Do you need to place an economic value there as well as that intrinsic value?
Look, we have to be realistic about this. We live in a capitalist society, and economics does have a massive part to play. There's a huge scope for economic valuation of aspects of nature. Clean water is valuable to us, wildfire prevention is valuable to us, shade and shelter has a financial value to farmers because it helps improve the condition of their livestock and stops them struggling as much from heat waves in the midsummer. So there's clearly financial valuations of some aspects, and if we're able to tap into some of those economic models and markets, then we're able to direct money back into nature restoration, nature conservation areas and projects.
Tom, can you give me an example of how these newly enshrined rights for nature might make a difference in practical policy making and delivery terms?
Well, first of all, this is a 24-month nature guardian or rights of nature development role that we've been recruited into to help the Usk Catchment Partnership with. So there's more questions than answers at the moment, and this is really about developing the lived experience. There's a number of organisations globally who have put nature on the board in a corporate setting, but what we're doing within the Usk Catchment Partnership has never been done in the UK before. So we're in a very different governance structure, and we're conceptually in a very different position. And also the people who are sitting on that board aren't profit focused. We've come together, it's a collection of people who have come together specifically to try and improve the health of the river. So whilst some of the existing experience that's out there is transferable, we've got an awful lot of learning that needs to be done.
Sorry, go on.
So I can't tell you right here and now how this is going to influence policy and strategy going forwards, but I think that the early indication is that it will allow conversations to happen that might not have otherwise happened. And I think the really standout, really interesting thing to me is that the people who have shown the greatest eagerness to just get on with this and to recruit somebody onto the Usk Catchment Partnership and start developing this lived experience are the farming community. So it was the farmers in the room who said, look, let's just do it. Let's just get on with it and let's live with it. And then we can reflect back in a year's time or in 2 years' time and go, these are the differences it made. These are the things that would have happened anyway. These are the areas where it caused some difficult conversations or caused some challenges or struggles. And these are the values.
So what difference do you expect it to make in terms of the Usk catchment? What sort of outcomes are you expecting to result environmentally?
Well, the Usk Catchment Partnership has already got quite clear environmental objectives. Clearly, it's funded as a nutrient management board. There are some nutrient-focused targets that it needs to reach in order to improve the health of the river and to unlock affordable housing within the catchment. Beyond that, there's a much wider range of actions that need to happen around slowing the flow and natural flood management. There's a huge number of biodiversity drivers and human drivers that we need to improve the health of the river on. And I think that by having this role of Nature Guardian on the Catchment Partnership, which I will be backed up by a huge network of subject matter experts, it allows me to go and tap into their expertise. And some of those will be specialist ecologists and biologists. Some of those will be, behavioural scientists. Some of those are other folks who are working in the rights of nature movement. So I sort of see this as a conduit to bring in another range of expertise and thinking into the Catchment Partnership to really help drive those changes for multiple benefits forward.
Is this approach the first time it's being delivered in Wales? Is it the first time in the UK?
So, as I mentioned before, Faith in Nature were the first company in the world to put nature on their board of directors, but that's a very different legal governance structure. As far as we're aware, no organisation in the UK of this type, no river catchment board or no community group has formally put the rights of nature central to their organisational structure before. And there's a number of different ways in which you can recognise the rights of nature. And this nature guardian concept, having a human representation of nature sitting in the room, that's just one of the ways. So this is, as far as we know, this is the first time it's being done in this sort of organisation anywhere in the UK. And what I really love about this is that the real energy behind the rights of nature, certainly in the Western world, came out of the legal personhood that was granted to the River Wanganui out in New Zealand. And so certainly, although many indigenous communities didn't start their journey, their journey with nature rights started much further back, but this more contemporary thinking around rights of nature started with a river, and now it's come full circle for us in Wales back to being with a river. And again, being in Wales and the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act, we're already at a point where we're conceptualising and thinking about rights and the impact of our decisions beyond just you and me and the immediate future. So it's not a huge sideways step to go from the future generations to nature and non-human species.
That was Tom Johnstone from We Are Nature Based. More news as ever on our website 8.9.com. That's all for now. We're back soon. Thanks for watching.